The rain-soaked parking lot outside the downtown Chicago law firm reflected the dull gray sky as Emily Carter stepped out of her car. She paused for a moment, steadying her breath, one hand instinctively resting on her rounded stomach. At 7 months pregnant, even short walks felt longer than they used to. But she had promised herself she would walk into this building with dignity. Today was not about emotions. It was about finalizing the divorce and closing a chapter she had already mourned in silence. Inside, the office smelled faintly of polished wood and coffee. The receptionist guided her toward the conference room where Michael was already waiting. He stood near the window, jacket neatly pressed, his expression composed in the way she remembered so well. For months, he had mastered the art of emotional distance. When he turned at the sound of the door opening, his practiced calm collapsed instantly. His gaze dropped, locking onto her belly, and time seemed to stall. "Emily?" he said, confusion and shock blending in his voice. She met his eyes without flinching and took a seat across the long table. "Let's just get this finished," she replied evenly, refusing to explain what he could already see. Michael remained standing for a moment longer, his mind racing. The last time he had seen her, she wore loose coats and avoided eye contact. He had assumed stress, maybe weight loss or gain from the separation. Pregnancy had never occurred to him. Now the reality stood directly in front of him, impossible to ignore. "You're pregnant," he said quietly, as if saying it louder might make it more real. "Yes," she answered. 7 months. The door opened and the attorneys entered, exchanging polite greetings and laying documents neatly across the table. Pens were placed in careful alignment, legal language filling the room with cold precision. Michael tried to focus, but the words blurred together. His attention kept drifting back to Emily's calm expression, to the subtle rise and fall of her breathing, to the life she carried without him knowing. Memories pushed forward uninvited, the nights they talked about the future, the arguments about timing, his insistence that they weren't ready. He felt a sharp twist of regret, realizing how final his words must have sounded to her back then. Across from him, Emily listened to the lawyer with composed detachment, as if this were just another appointment in her day. As she signed the first page, Michael's hand hesitated above his own pen. The divorce, he thought, would bring closure suddenly. Felt like the beginning of something far heavier, something he was no longer prepared to walk away from so easily. The meeting ended with the soft shuffle of papers and the muted click of briefcases closing. Emily stood first, slipping the pen back onto the table, as if placing down the final weight of her marriage. Her face remained composed, but inside she felt the familiar ache of exhaustion, emotional more than physical. She adjusted her coat carefully, mindful of her stomach, and turned toward the door, ready to leave before the past could pull her back in. "Emily, wait!" Michael's voice stopped her just steps away. They stood in the hallway outside the conference room, the hum of distant offices filling the silence between them. He looked different now, stripped of the confidence he had carried into the meeting. His eyes flicked once more to her belly, then back to her face, as if seeking permission to ask what had been haunting him since the moment she walked in. "Is the baby mine?" he asked quietly. She did not hesitate. Yes, there was never anyone else. Her tone was steady, not accusatory, simply factual. Michael exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. Guilt settled heavily on his shoulders. He remembered the argument that ended. Everything, how he had said he wasn't ready for responsibility, how he needed freedom, how children could wait. At the time, he had believed those words protected him. Now he saw how deeply they must have cut her. "I didn't know," he said. "If I had—" "You would have done what?" she interrupted gently. "Promised to think about it? Ask for more time?" Her eyes softened but did not waver. "I couldn't live in uncertainty anymore, Michael. I needed to make a decision for both of us." He nodded slowly, accepting the truth in her words. The divorce papers inside the conference room suddenly felt like a formality compared to the reality standing before him. "I don't want to disappear," he said after a long pause. "Whatever happened between us, I want to be involved. I want to take responsibility." Emily studied him, searching for sincerity rather than fear. Being involved isn't just about showing up when it's convenient, she said. It's about consistency, stability. I understand, he replied, his voice firm now. And I'm willing to prove it. The elevator doors opened behind her with a soft chime. Emily stepped inside, turning to face him one last time. Today was about ending our marriage, she said. What comes next is about a child. We'll talk about that soon. As the doors closed, Michael stood alone in the hallway, realizing that while the divorce had been finalized, a far more permanent connection had just begun, one that would demand more courage than walking away ever had.